I can hardly start to speak, I'm weak. I feel the past in my bones. My dream, I'm naked and alone. I'm feeling weak.
Good evening. Right, I've spent the day with the DJI system again, and this time I've been testing Omni antennas. And since my original sort of overview, first impressions review, whatever you want to call it, I've used the DJI system quite a lot, and I really like it. Nothing has really changed since my first review. I still don't think it's a one goggle system. For me, the size of the air unit, etc., make it, a bolt-on feature rather than something that you would completely replace your analog system with. And of course, it still doesn't have the outright range of analog. But I thought I'd get some antennas to see if I could sort of improve the range and the amount of artifacts that you get, or the compression that you get, which presumably could be improved with better antenna, although we'll have to wait and see. So I need to start this video by giving a shout out to a very nice chap from America, Alex, who kindly ordered and sent me a set of Lumenier AXII antennas, and this is the little set that you can get from the DJI, and it comprises of 4 stubby AXII antennas, and it comes with RP SMA to SMA converters, and you also get 2 Lumenier AXII Omni antennas with a 90-degree MMTX connector. I also got myself some Truerc stubby antennas. I thought it'd be fun just to compare the two and see what the differences were versus the stock DJI antennas. So with the DJI system, you get this little apparently Omni antenna with a 90-degree MMCX, and then you get 4 of these guys, which are RP SMA, and the whole DJI system is left-hand circular polarized, but I've got all of my antennas in right-hand circular polarized simply because that's the antennas that I use on every other quad, and it makes more sense to me to run one set of antennas. So this is going to be a pretty boring video, sadly, and you're not going to see a huge amount in terms of the DVR footage, and the reason for that is I'm going to show you it, but there isn't a huge amount that you're going to be able to see from the DVR. There are a few points that are of interest, but to sum it up, these guys retail for about 100 quid in the set. The Truerc ones are about 50 or 60 quid, I think, for possibly 70 quid for 4. And obviously you need antennas for the quads, whereas the DJI antennas obviously come free with the DJI system, and you can buy 2 of the Omni antennas for the air unit for 14 quid, and I don't know how much these are, but probably very cheap as well. So there's a huge difference in cost, and in their posts both Lumenier and Truerc were claiming increased range. of 30 to 50%. Now we all know what claims are, and my kind of theory was, even if I got an extra 10 or 15% max, I would be really happy with that. But to sort of summarize this video, my experiences have been the opposite of that. If you're expecting me to sort of rave about these antennas and put links to them and etc., you're going to be disappointed, because in my testing today in the UK, using 700 milliwatt on the air unit, flying in focus mode, low latency, because high quality mode, which you'll often see, is pretty unflyable unless you're in a completely empty field, and even then you'll be looking at latency of 40 milliseconds upwards, which to me I begin to feel, and it becomes a little bit uncomfortable. So I prefer to fly low latency, focus mode on, and while that puts a lot of pixels either side of the screen, it keeps the major part of the image relatively clear, which I prefer, so you can see where you're going, as opposed to having random pixels floating around your eyes. So what I want to say is, I started out and I flew. This is a spot I'm really familiar with. I know where I get bad reception, just behind the trees. Back end of the wood, there are either telephone wires or power wires, which always cause a lot of interference on analog. And if you fly to the other end of the field, over the river, etc., there's an area where I always get particularly bad reception. So I start off and I fly over the back end, and as I go through these two trees and over a sort of barbed wire fence, the unit struggles for a second. I get a low RF warning, which continues, but I'm not getting any real latency. However, the screen itself compresses badly or pixelizes badly, and I know at that point I'm in a bad area. So I continue flying around, and then, somewhat interestingly, I decide to try the Truerc right-hand circular polarized antennas with the DJI left-hand circular polarized antennas, and the reception is absolutely fine. In fact, I would say it's probably the best that I had during my day of testing. So either the DJI antennas aren't actually polarized and are maybe just linear antennas, or something is really strange, or perhaps just digital isn't affected in the same way as analog is. But either way, I don't have any issues flying with right hand circular polarized on my goggle and left hand circular polarized on my quad. So I then take out the AXII antennas. I put the AXII antennas on my quad, both sort of zip tied to the side, and using a specific sort of DJI 3D printed mount. And I'm pretty surprised. I expected to see a big jump in quality, but what I in fact get is, as I'm flying at the back end of this field again, maybe 400 meters out, as I go through the gap in these two trees, I suddenly get a huge amount of breakup, more than I had using the DJI antennas. And you can see the DVR skipping, or should I say speeding up, which is a sure sign that I'm on the edges of this system's capabilities. So you're going to be looking at this footage and thinking, well, I can't really see any difference. And the reason for that is, neither could I. So this is the quad that I tested on, and I had the antennas mounted in two different ways. One like so, and the other way was using a mount like this, and the results didn't really change in any major way. So you're probably looking at this video and thinking, I can't really see any difference, and the reason why you're thinking that is, and neither could I. Even having looked at the DVR back on a larger screen, the differences are absolutely minimal. The antennas made no difference to the amount of compression that you get or anything like that, but they also made no difference to the actual range of the unit. When I was flying both Lumenier, I was getting RF warnings on the goggles all the way round the sort of bad RF area. I wasn't on the DJI or the DJI with the Truerc, but that's strange in itself, as I was imagine these two guys both being made by Truerc are pretty much the same bar different casing, although I can't really say whether that's true or not. Interestingly about these resell for about 16 quid or 17 quid a pop, but the performance of them is no better when I've used them before than the original AXII, which you can buy under under Get FPV's own brand, which is Xylo, I think. The only real difference is that these are sort of using this sort of heat welding system to sort of protect the inner lobe, and it's apparently a lot less likely to break than the original ones were. Generally, I would use fox ear lollipops. I still plan to test it, but this quad is still giving me issues, and frankly, given my experiences with Betaflight over the last few weeks, I've frankly had enough of it. It has its place for me on 7-inch quads and stuff like that. 3.57 I've always found to be pretty easily tunable, but both of these guys have, I've tried to tune them myself, and I also got a very good pilot, Superfly FPV, which is a Superfly who makes Superfly frames, to send me a custom CLE dump, or should I say CLI dump, and even then, though it flew much better, it just doesn't have the feel or the consistency of KISS for me. You know, if you do the Bardwell punch outs and then flatten off, this quad will now slowly drift back downwards without nodding its nose or dipping, etc. If you run fast and do a hard spin, there'll be very little prop wash, but where it falls down is in overall stick feel, but also in the transition between fast and slow. It has odd twitches and odd movements, which KISS just doesn't have, and that's likely down to filter settings. But to be honest, as I've said before, I just haven't got the time or the patience to get a black box log and start pissing around with that. So given my issues with this guy, I'm dumping Betaflight, and I'm simply going to put my KISS gear in it, and I might use a donor Betaflight board to get the OSD voltage and timer from the DJI system. I'll lose the ability to PID tune, but KISS is so easy to tune. I can do that with a laptop or my phone really easily. The test I want to carry out is using two of these antennas and the Truerc X-Air patch, sort of a double patch that's made for the DJI unit, and I suspect that will give us a lot more range, or at least I hope it will do. Interestingly, quite a few people have commented, and one of the lads I fly with has commented. He works in broadcasting, and the comments tend to be is that rather than messing around with these Omni antennas, we should be using linear antennas, because digital doesn't have the sort of same reflections or mirroring that analog does, and using a good linear antenna and then patch antennas on the goggles themselves should give better results. So yeah, that's it from me. Bit of a boring test. As I said, if you're going to get some antennas, these guys are my preferred ones of these two, and they look better in the red as well. They're smaller and marginally cheaper, I think, but I wouldn't bother getting the AXIs for your quad, because two of these is 34 quid, whereas two of these is 14 quid. Be interesting to see how these do on analog actually, or whether they're actually polarized at all, given my experience with them. But yeah, there you go. Hope that was useful. Hope that saves somebody some money. And again, big shout out to Alex for paying and sending these from America. Really appreciate it. And I wouldn't have got them otherwise because I can't find any in the UK. So yeah, cheers guys. Thank you. Bye bye.